Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European crossover webinar. And we did have some Italian data just come across right now with industrial orders. You see, they were looking for them to be up 1.1%. Actually, that was the number that came out. Actually, 1.1%. Positive on the industrial orders, Italian industrial orders. Year over year was weaker by 10%, but as we move into the rest of the day, at the bottom of the hour, we will go UK CPI data at the bottom of the hour, as well as PPI. And at the top of this next hour, we're going to get Italian CPI. And the HICP final. Coming into the States, we will have retail sales here in the States as data starts to finally kick off for the week, as well as Canadian CPI data. And NHB housing market. No, and I hope you all heard me. Let me see. Hang on one moment. Just get a one moment. Just got a little headline about the chance of streaking for a UK deal. Bear with me. And looks like I may have the pause on at the time, so I do apologize for that. I was just showing the data that we had going to come out for Italian industrial orders, and it actually came in at up 1.1% on month over month. And then I was just indicating that at the bottom of the hour we do have core CPI data out of UK as well as PPI. And at the top of the hour, we'll have Italian consumer prices as well as HICP for the Eurozone. And then as we come to the States, we'll finally have data truly kick off for the beginning of the week with retail sales and Canadian CPI. And then we do also have NHB housing, but that won't be till 10 a.m. Eastern. Let's move this out of the way. We're seeing cable pull back. We saw that headline, but it was already pulling back. Previous to that, we also saw a run up here in the euro. We have the level of 1075, but 1083 is the 38% that we've referred to before. Bear with me. And peso's been holding that area that we've been looking for them to challenge, which is the breakout area, and for that to be support, which is 1923.6, an overshoot for 1916. Moment. Bear with me. Now we've seen the dollar CAD gets stuck around this area that we've had as bias chart resistance, which is at 32, 36 on the first go around. It looked like it's going to try and push higher, but it hasn't. It's just kind of been stuck here. And then obviously we saw the dollar yen push up. We're kind of easing back a bit, but resistance coming up into the 908 area. Dollar kind of holding this area here, this 98.14-ish here. And gold did take that dip yesterday. We'll go and cover the news. It is very, very light. Bear with me one moment. So sterling rally pauses and the yuan falls on U.S. friction over Hong Kong. The pound pulled back from its highest level in almost 5 months versus the dollar on Wednesday. Isn't some of the rally sparked by the signs Britain is closing in on a deal to leave the European Union? Sterling also pulled back from its highest in 5 months against the euro as investors took profit and prepared for a make-or-break summit between the Britain and the EU on Thursday and Friday. U.S.-China ties came into focus again as the yuan fell after Beijing criticized new U.S. legislation seen as supportive of the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. In global currency markets, traders nervously await the latest developments from a last-ditch effort to see whether Britain and the EU can draft an agreement on Brexit before the summit. Reports the two sides were approaching an agreement boosted sterling overnight, although traders said that the currency could swing wildly because it's still unclear if Britain can avoid postponing its departure beyond October 31st. Even if the two sides can agree on something, it's unclear if they can stick with the exit deadline, said Yuki Shizuki. Whether Britain's parliament will approve whatever has been agreed is another big uncertainty. Sterling has had a good run-up, but investors are lightening their positions. The pound up 0.24% up to 27.57, pulling back from a 5-month high of 28 even reached on Tuesday. Against the euro, the British currency fell around 0.2 to 86.48 pence. The pound on Tuesday jumped after Bloomberg News reported that negotiators hope that agreement will be reached by midnight on Tuesday in Europe, but a lack of news in Asia about the talks helped push the currency lower, traders said. Without a Brexit deal, the trade from Britain that previously flowed unhindered across the EU single market would be subject to customs tariffs and safety inspections, which many would fear would cause economic turmoil. In Asia, the U.S.-China strains over Hong Kong pushed the safe haven yen higher, helping it claw back earlier losses as worries about relations between the economic superpowers and disappointment with efforts to end their trade war marred sentiment. In the onshore market, the yuan fell around 0.222% to 7.9973 per dollar. A bruising trade war between the U.S. and China has dragged on for more than a year and has already placed incredible strains on relations between the two countries. Hong Kong has been rocked by the months of often violent protests against China's rule of the former British colony. Any signs of support from the U.S. lawmakers for the protest movement is likely to draw Beijing's ire and make its resolution of the trade war less likely. Reports of a Phase 1 trade deal between the U.S. and China last week initially cheered markets, but the dearth of details around the agreement has since curbed any enthusiasm. So let's just go and move on to the charts now. So as far as the euro, let's pull that up. So the euro back tested the sub 110 and found a 50 pip rally. As long as the euro can defend the 1020 on a daily close, the door is open to a challenge of 1113. Support remains 980. Now we know where the initial resistance is, which hasn't changed. If we look on here at the bias chart, we're looking at 1075. And let's pull this up in here. Well, as long as we can hold this 1020, like I said, we did get a dip sub 110, and then we saw a nice 50 pip rally and then kind of slid back. But as long as we can hold this 1020 on a closing basis, everything looks open to eventually make a move up here at 1113. We did make a stab up in here, came up as high as 1060, and then we've gone to pair back just a bit here, 30 pips almost. But the resistance is right here, 1075, confluencing with 1083. So the market kind of paired back from that. We still have not been able to break beyond that here. I'm a bit surprised. I mean, but the dollar has held up very, very well. So it's going to still remain 1075. And on the downside, as you mentioned, in case we do slide back, it's still going to remain 980. So there's no changes here with the euro. Key is for it to hold 1020 on this closing basis, and we've done just that. Says the cable has held the dip below 26 and is pushing the breakout area above 28 for a challenge of 2980 if it can get that breakout. The support is 2645, so that's our support for today. It's going to be 2645, and we're not that far away from where we took that dip. Let's go and take a look here. So right there, the low is 2677. We have our support today here, 2645. You can see where that comes in right there, 2645. For right now, resistance, you can see it coming across here, is going to be that 2785. And really, if you think about it, let's take it out to a daily. We're just going to hold in this position. I think the headlines are going to either we see something very positive, which I think that it's trying to keep this market in check. But if we get some kind of news that turns positive, we're definitely going to blow these stops. But here's that 20. I mentioned 28.26, and here's that last stop. If we can hold the market there at 28.26, right there. You see that? If they do blow stops, that would be the last Alamo stand before I think we could end up being really pushing high if we do get beyond that. But it's going to be tricky as we just going back and forth. And as Amanda likes to say, that it's all in the details, but we shall go on and see here. Let's go and move into the Aussie dollar. Well, the Aussie continues to pair back and says the Aussie continued to retreat, holding above support 67.25. Well, just barely. Look at that. The low already has already been 67.26. Resistance for the breakout remains 68.09. Well, we talked about this early in the week. We have not been able to get it beyond the 68.09, and the market just continues to weaken. That's the real key. We can say here for a very short term it's 67.90, but the real resistance is right here. It needs to break above that. We got above the trend line, but only because the trend line has been sloping. So no changes here. We are holding, but we need to hold that 67.25 on a daily closing basis. And then 68.09 is the key. So for us to get going somewhere. So no changes here also on the Aussie. We'll move into the Kiwi. Kiwi is just a mirror of the Aussie too. Nothing here going here in the Kiwi. Says Kiwi is stuck in the mud, spinning its wheels, or whatever analogy you want to throw at it. But this pair has traded the better part of a 70 pip trading range for a week. Resistance remains at 63.58 and support at 62.67, which we're just barely holding, and that's on a closing basis. So no changes here so far with Aussie and Kiwi, except to just look dead in the water. Now here's that 32.36 I've been referring to, and that's kept the dollar CAD in check up here. We have not been able to move higher. Says the dollar CAD spent the day, prior day, marking time as it eased back from a challenge of 32.40. Upside resistance beyond would be 32.74 with support at 31.80. So, you know, we're very, very close. So I don't want to just say, okay, well, that continues to remain the resistance, because we can easily pop those stops. And we do have Canadian data today. So as I mentioned, on the upside, it's going to be 32.74, and we will give it on the downside down to 31.80. We'll encompass that data that we have coming out today to allow for a little bit of volatility here with the dollar CAD. As we move into the peso, it says the dollar peso is holding at the breakout level of 1923.6. We've talked about that. A support on the break would be 1916. A daily close below the breakout opens a challenge to 1908, and resistance is 1933. So we've talked about this almost ad nauseum, but this has been a key level, and obviously where once they broke that 1944 really opened the door for them to challenge 1923.6, and that's exactly what's happened. We've come there, we're holding it. If we were to break below, there's some additional support at 1916, but this 1923.6 is right there, so everything remains the same here, except for the resistance. We're going to put that 1933. So no real changes, except that we've tightened the resistance a little bit. It's 1938 because that's going to be almost like a pivot for the peso. Once again, it's a sell, but I mean, we've come down here, we're trying to hold that. Maybe they'll try and make a better stand, which could potentially move it to 1943. But for right now, that'll be the immediate resistance here. And looking at the dollar yen, it says the dollar yen pushed higher in sympathy with equities. Resistance is 908 with the weekly pivot at 927. Support comes in at 839, followed by 813. So we've seen this move higher, as I mentioned, in sympathy with the equities, as equities did push up in the SPOOs up to 3,000. We've come off a bit here on the SPOOs, and that's allowed the dollar yen to ease, but once again, moving in sympathy, market's not really fighting it. And once again, you consider where the SPOOs have gone, the dollar yen rally has been quite mild, because we could easily been up here closer to around 110. So they kept the rally in a sense, to me, restrained, but it's still, still worked a little bit higher. Resistance is going to be that 908. And on the downside, we set 839. It's followed by 813, but we'll just keep that on the side for right now. But 839 on the downside, quite, keeping it very, very close, but beyond that be 813. But even at 839, that'd still be a good 30 pips away here. So. Since the dollar index has held the 98.30 level for a second day in a row, the index has potential to the weekly level of 97.89 with resistance at 98.58. So you can see here, and here's that big level we talked about. Really just a huge level, this 97.89, whereas potentially that's where this market can go. It's been holding this 98.30. I mean, we're holding it actually right now. Although if you look on a 2-hour chart, we have visited the top, not the top, I mean the bottom of this zone, which comes in at 98.14. You can see that. But for now, we continue to hold that 98.30, but the potential is for 97.89. We'll go on and mark off this bottom of the zone here. But once again, if the euro can break out, that's where the dollar index should get to, which would be the 97.89. We had 98.14 here, and that's what has held the market. So we're going to go and keep that in place, 98.14. Resistance, the only difference is we'll move the resistance down here to 98.58. We do finally, as I said, get some data. Actually, in just a few moments, we will have UK CPI data as well as PPI. At the top of the hour, we do have, we'll go over that quickly. So at the bottom of the hour, as I mentioned, we do have UK CPI and PPI data along with Italian consumer prices. And once again, at the top of the hour, the HICP final data at the top of the hour for the Eurozone. And as we move into the States, we do get our first Tier 1 data of the week, which is going to be retail sales at 8:30 Eastern. I'm in Texas, so that's what you're showing. I have it at Central Time, but it'll be 8:30 Eastern Time. And, of course, we do get Canadian CPI data. Probably see a nice little move there. And then NHB housing data, that'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern. As we roll into the next day, we will be getting here employment data coming out of Australia. That'll be at 8:30 Eastern. Let's go and move into the cross rates. One moment. Yeah, just sharing some. I wanted to share something here in the chat room, so bear with me one moment. Okay, I was just posting some option FX data in the chat room. So let's go and move on to the Kiwi yen. Bear with me. Okay, so moving into the Kiwi yen, and one of the things that's been, and someone was even referencing just a few moments ago in the chat room, is how this they've just been, knocking this Kiwi, or that it hasn't been able to go and even rally. And you can see here, look at this against the yen, even just the Kiwi just can't get any kind of a lift here. With the potential for this to move lower, I think you have to go on and factor a move down here. So it's going to come in at 67.91, and still, even if you look here for volume, right there, 67.83. We have to look at that as a potential, as weak as this has been. And we did have that in place, actually 67.85. And on the upside, we put 68.40. The upside, we're actually going to narrow this down here. It's going to be, we'll have it at 68.52. And let's go and take a look here at the euro yen. The cable is pushing up a little bit higher. We're at 27.29, and we do have data coming out, and we will go in and cover that. Hey, bear with me one. Well, so looking at this euro yen, we've seen this pop up here, and I mentioned this yesterday in the chat room, is that we do have this level of resistance here. You can see here the touch is right here, and we're just going to keep this. We're going to mark this which is going to be 2025 here on the euro yen 2025. So even with the euro kind of making a move up here, we took out the high by just a few pips. You see that? And we turned around and rotated lower again. And that was at that 2025. We're going to go and move this just a little bit lower for support, which would be right there. 1963, right there. I mean, we had it as resistance without being a support, 1963. Get rid of this. And let's go and move into the cable for the data release. You can see here we've gone and moved higher on the upper end here with cable. Let's go on and get ready for this data release. Also, the guppy is at 138.28, coming a bit off the lows. We had seen a decent little slide here in the guppy, and starting on is at 88.97. Kind of mirroring the same action that we're seeing here in the cable itself. Data is due out in another 25 seconds, 20 seconds. And releases in 5 seconds. There we go. Up 0.2. Not that much reaction here in the cable. but not that much. Not that much. So softer inflation data across the board. What they're saying on the squawk. Let's go on and move back into the cross rates. Even in the guppy, you can see not that much of a reaction. Sterling versus the odd, same here, relatively quiet. We'll move into the euro odd. Euro odd is actually gaining here because, as I mentioned, the Aussie continues to remain quite weak. You see here on the there we go. On the daily, we'll push up a little bit beyond that 63.49. So we are breaking above that area. It's going in. So we've made it above this key area right now. We're holding our own. I don't see any turnaround here in the Aussie as we would come into the U.S. session. The resistance is going to come in at pretty good far cry to a certain extent, but it'd be 64.47. 64.47. We're still a ways off from that, but that's what we'd be moving to. Some resistance coming here, but it's 64.47, the next key level. So let's mark this off here. And I'll have to mark that with a bullish bias. Let's take a look here for support. So support's going to be there at 63.09. Get rid of this. And the bias has turned bullish here on the euro versus the odd. Let's go and move into the euro Kiwi. And we continue to move higher here as we go up towards the 76 cents. One of the things we talked about at the beginning of the week was we were saying that the upside on this initial upside resistance would be 75.03 and beyond that 76. Well, we're not that far from 76. There's 76. We're just going to move right at that level is just about a little bit above, which is 76.33. And let's pull this back. You can see right there. So we're going to go with 76.33. Should see a reaction at that area. And let's take a, you can see here. Still has a lot more room to go eventually if we push beyond this area, but we'll look for that 76.33. Let's take a look on that support. Right there, 75.23. You have to move that just a tad bit lower. Right there. 74.89, unless we see a dramatic turnaround. I don't expect that, so let's go right there. 75.17. Aussie yen just kind of marking time here. You can see here, not really much change whatsoever. We're just kind of hanging here with a little bit of a downside push, which is not surprising considering the weakness in Aussie. Supposed to come in at 72.76. We may already have that marked off. Move it down to 76. For now, it's going to be 73.50. And let's go move into the guppy. Well, we had that pretty good move yesterday. Look at this. Coming right into that level. 39.15. It's interesting because this has just gone from level to level. That's a pretty good little pause there too, that 39.15. I've rarely ever traded the guppy, but that's a pretty good little area right there for those that did catch it. Let's go and take a look here on the 2-hour chart. For now, we can go with 38.68 for the resistance. Hang on. You see that coming across right there? Right there. $38.68. Support's gonna be right there. 37.36. Well, we've been in a pretty good little run here, especially obviously when you look at the weakness in the Aussie dollar. Interesting here. Wow, quite the move. That's 89.87. 89.87. And that looks like, let's see, we got up to 89.64. So it's 89.87. with support going to come in, well, right here. It's going to be 87.53. Quite still a fall. Hang on, let's push up just right coming across here at this level there. So it's be 87.94, 87.94, just a bit below the lows. And let's just go and take a look at a couple of the other markets. Crude oil remains weak. I mean, it looks like it can't buy a rally to save its life. I mean, we opened up strong in the week, and it's just been down. Rallies just continue to be sold. A bit of a volume over here coming in at 52.24, but this market looks plain old weak. And it looks like it certainly wants to make a move lower. You know, if you think about the way things have been risk on, or that sentiment supposedly has improved so much, you would have thought you'd probably find a little bit more strength, and we're just not seeing it. You think about that and the concerns maybe for global growth or whatever. You're just not seeing any kind of rally here, or not rally, but the market trying to make some kind of a stand after quite a fall, and we're simply not making it. Really opens the door for us to brush it or knock itself much lower. Looking here at the gold market, and look here, we are just knocking back a bit here too. We saw a pretty good little sell-off yesterday. We kind of pushed back a little bit here, but this market really looks like it has the potential to push even lower. And we'll kind of take a look at this on a different screen here. We saw that sell-off last week, and one of the things I was looking at was that as the market came back rather quickly when we had the initial sell-off. So I'm thinking this is almost like a microcosm of the previous one, but we saw the sell-off, but we didn't see much of a rally, just a tidbit. We've moved up right now as we broke lower, we came back up. This is what happened the last time. We rallied up to 38%, just about a dollar above it, or $1.50 before we saw the market kind of pare back. Well, we've now come up, but it's only a slight fall, a slight rally here, but it still looks like this market. I think that after we made this move, and I'm looking at a 15-minute here, let's put this on a 30, give it a little bit more better perspective. After we saw that fall, we kind of inched our way up, and we took another tumble. Now, one thing I didn't see, and I mentioned that in the chat room, I mentioned to some people, is that, wow, we were talking about this yesterday, the day before, and I was saying it just keeps pushing a little bit higher. Can't really tell what this market wants to do. Well, it kept up, and look here, on this 15-minute, you saw a nice gravestone doji, and it really opened the door for this to slip. And did it really slip? And we came back just a little bit, but not much. We're kind of hanging here, but it almost seems like I said, that this market wants to make one more slide. I think people are looking to pick up the market, but they're looking for a better fall. And so we may have a tougher time, especially after last week. I mean, maybe we knocked some people out of the box, but and we saw a nice return rally. Here, I think he probably did the same thing with a little bit more gusto, and so any rally back here is going to have a very tough time. I think that this market will eventually have to work lower before we can start to make a stand. But you can see here we just creep up a little bit, creep. Then we kind of sitting there, not really making any real big movements until we set up with that little gravestone doji. And saw a pretty nice little pullback yesterday. Crude oil, like I said, can't even buy a bid. You can see here any kind of rallies just keeps on sliding back. Had an opportunity yesterday. If we got past 53.72 on 2-hour close, we had the opportunity to move up to into the 54.20s. It just didn't, and maybe potentially finally put in a bottom. It just rolled over, and we're still staying quite weak on this market. Getting back to the other markets. We talked about the bunds, and we've seen that big fall in the bunds, which corresponded with a rise in the euro, and we were looking for that since last week. We're kind of holding our ground here. We talked about this yesterday, the daily roundup. This would be an area, and actually we even mentioned right here, you see that little level there, and that's actually where they found the support. Well, actually, or should I say found some demand. You see right there, these touches right there. So that's what we mentioned in the daily roundup. And that's actually ended up holding, and we're kind of getting a little bit of a bounce. You get that little overshoot from here and right there and hold it. Maybe it may get the euro to pause a bit. We'll see here. Like I said, the market's oversold, so if we can rally up a little bit higher, that may put the euro a bit on the defensive. We shall see. But other than that, that's about it. That's what we have here for the European crossover webinar. Thanks for joining us here. We'll see you at 12:30 Eastern on the daily roundup.